So, what was the real reason for leaving the Rubettes?
Do you remember that line in The Sunshine Boys?
No.
You seen that film?
No.
It's Walter Matthau and George Burns are in the film, and it's about these. They'd been a major double act, like, you know, sort of American Morgan and Wise, if you like, and they'd had this major falling out. And somebody years later, they were doing a big show in America, a big television show, sort of nostalgia show, and they wanted to get them back together doing one of their famous scripts. And the nephew of one of them decided that he was going to I'll get them back together. And he's talking to Walter Matthau. They're walking down the street, and he said to him, "So why did you break up in the first place?" He said, "Artistic differences." He said, "What sort of artistic differences?" He said, "I hate the son of a bitch, them sort of artistic differences." And that's a stock line, wasn't it? Why did the band break up? Artistic difference. That was the stock line, wasn't it?
And was it artistic differences?
Well, it was really, yeah.
In what way? Differences between who?
Well, it's the Rubettes were an odd band in a way. Maybe all bands are odd bands in a way, because it hadn't been a band until Sugar Baby Love. It was kind of disparate personalities thrown together, which is interesting in a way, but it means that, like the Beatles ended up, I suppose, if you listen to an album, you can almost tell who wrote what, because people were coming from different directions. And I was the one that, first of all, I wanted to make it into more of a country rock band, because that was what I was into at the time. Like I said, the Amazing Rhythm Aces and the Eagles and people like that. And John was into the Eagles as well. John loved the Eagles. But the thing that sort of put the cat among the pigeons was the French, and I love France. I mean, I'm a Francophile. And I love the French. But they had a strange taste in music, as it seemed to us at the time anyway, where they were big fans of really quite heavy pop music, you know, Pink Floyd and stuff like that, and of very, very cheesy pop music, and kind of nothing in the middle. You know what I mean? The sort of middle ground was empty. So John and Al decided, understandably I suppose, that they wanted to write some stuff specifically for the French. Very, very, you know, ooh la la and stuff like that. That was, I mean, we got slagged off for being teeny bop band in England, even for the stuff we were releasing. If we released that stuff in England, God knows what would have happened. We'd have got stoned or burnt or something. And I didn't understand that kind of stuff at all.
You didn't understand its appeal?
No, I mean, I just didn't understand anything about it. Why would anybody want to record anything that poppy? So I used to say to John, no animosity or anything, I'm perfectly happy to turn up at the session and play whatever you want me to play on these things, but don't ask for my opinion on them. Don't ask for any input, because I have no idea why we're doing it, kind of. And that was all right, and I went along and recorded, you know, did my bit. And as you probably know, I mean, the first tour we did over here was pretty awful. Our fault.
Why?
Well, because we went on, you know, I mean, Sugar Baby Love didn't sell records. What sold the Rubettes was not the record at all. What sold the Rubettes was the image. Because Sugar Baby Love was 51 in the charts for 3 weeks. And Radio 1 were playing it. I mean, they were plugging it hard. And every time we went to Polydor and went, how's it doing? It was still 51. It wasn't moving. And and Radio 1 had said, look, we're going to take it off, you know, the playlist. People aren't buying it. And Polydor pleaded with them to give it another week. And that was the week we got that Top of the Pops out of the blue. And we went on and did Top of the Pops. And the record then went 25, 2, 1. So what people bought was the image, you know. I forgot the bloody question now.
Why did you leave the Rubettes?
Right. Well, let's get back to that then. And where did I get sidetracked from that?
That don't matter.
That's my head.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So what we did was, as you would, when we went on tour, and we'd never played together as a band. I mean, the most fatal thing you can do if you've never played together is to headline when you've never ever played together before, because we had one song, so we had to put together enough other material to make enough time to go out and do a concert without ever having tried any of it, without ever having known whether any of these things would work live.
Were there a lot of cover versions in there?
There was a few, yeah. I remember I wanted to do What About Us, the old Coasters thing, because I loved that bloody record when I was a kid, still do. I don't remember what else we did, but... And we naturally enough, I suppose, like you do. Well, this is what people have bought on the television, we'll do it live. So we did the same thing on live that we'd done on the television. And the tour didn't go all that well, especially in the press. And as it was getting to an end, in order to find out what was going on, we hired a video company and said, don't move about. We just want a static camera pointing at the stage so we can see what we're doing, you know. And we did it. We went round to Polydor the next day and looked at it, and it was bloody awful. And so we scrapped it. We scrapped the whole thing.
The choreography, was that in there as well?
Yeah, and it just, on stage, it just didn't work. You know, it was all right on a television thing for one track. But as a concept for a gig, it just didn't work. So we got rid of it. And we go on and we do the French records and we do all the stuff. And we didn't work in England for 3 years, I think, because of that first tour. And then, I don't know where we were abroad somewhere, and John came into my hotel room and he said, we've just got 4 gigs in England. First 4 gigs in England for 3 years. Couple of universities and a couple of, I can't remember what, but biggish gigs anyway. And he said, you know what you're always saying to me about, you don't understand the French records, you don't know what to do with them. I said, yeah. He said, well, I have no idea what to do for a set list for these English gigs. Will you write the set list?
And this is a big thing, right? The set list.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is what this is going to make, in theory, make or break the reaction. So I said, yeah, all right. So I came up with a set list. And
what did it involve? What was in it?
Well, obviously, certainly the bigger of the hits at the end, because, you have to. But a lot of the stuff from the albums, and me and Rick West, who was on the last tour, from the Tremolos, who was on the last couple of albums, when we were making those albums, me and him would sit together and we would play things like dueling banjos. And he was a big Chet Atkins, Jerry Reed. Well, he was the first one that turned me on to Jerry Reed. So he was a big Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed thing. So I can't remember what tune we did, but we did a Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed thing as well. And I decided to put those in the middle of the set. We'd go on and we'd play some stuff. And then me and him would sit down the front and we'd play dueling banjos and this Chet Atkins, Jerry Reed thing. So I put that in, which I was told would die on its arse. Absolutely die on its arse. And I said, like I always do, well, let's try it. Give it, try it a couple of times, and if it dies on its arse, we'll take it out. Well, it didn't, as it happens, die on its arse. And none of it did. And when we came back, we did these 4 gigs, and it was the first good reaction we'd ever had over here. We even got good press on. The one I was most pleased with was we played Glasgow and we'd set all the gear up, and I was watching through. When they opened the doors at the back, I was kind of watching what happened. And all these, I think most of them were students, all sort of rushed in. And I got the impression they were there to take the piss. And by halfway through the gig, we'd completely won them over with doing the newer stuff. And we did the hits at the end. But, you know, we were doing stuff from the albums.
Did you play the hits in the original style?
Oh, yeah.
The doo-wop style?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when we played the original stuff, we played it the way we'd always played it. But we'd won them over. And I was really pleased. We did one gig, Joe Brown supported us on one of the gigs. And there was one, I think it might have been Leicester, that band called Cato Bell were the support band on that, and they were fabulous. Really good. But anyway, these gigs work well. And for some reason I can't begin to fathom, really. I think the rest of the band took that as a sign that I was getting too dogmatic, too important. I had started recording Tone Control as well. And I can only say what I was told was, you know, that I've started making my own album. They reckon that I'm going to leave as soon as I've done it. And if I'm going to do that, I'd better go now. But I couldn't understand. Well, I said to him, I said, look, if you want me to go, I'll go. But we've just started to get some critical, you know, acceptance over here. Give it a year and see what happens. At least, you know, if we can lift it up and put it somewhere, wherever we get it, if you want me to go, then I'll go. But it just seems ridiculous now when we've just started to build it up. But they weren't having it.
This is the whole band.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it was John that told me.
Do you think John genuinely felt like that? Or was he just the messenger?
Well, I got the impression that John was reluctant to do it. That was the impression I got.
Reluctant to deliver the news, or
yeah, reluctant to be the one who had to do it. You know, the one who had to actually take the gun and go out and shoot the bloke. While the rest of the gang had decided. I mean, I don't know. Who the bloody hell knows? I mean, don't forget, there was only 4 of us in the band, so it was only, you know, there was only 3 others apart from me. So I don't know. I just thought it was, at the time, I thought it was a ill-conceived idea. Bad idea.
Who do you think first suggested that idea?
What idea?
That you left the band?
I don't know. I mean, I still don't know. I mean, it must have been between John and Al, I think, because Mick wasn't the kind of person. You know, Mick was, I don't like to say this in front of you, but kind of typical bass player, really. Very easygoing, very... just got on with everyone, Mick did. So I can't imagine it to be the kind of thing that Mick... But see, John and Alan were tight anyway, because John and Alan, before the Rubettes, had a double act called Baskin and Copperfield. And they'd known each other for years, so they were sort of very, very tight.
But you had previously worked with Alan and John, though.
Yeah.
Was that just on the London session circuit, or?
Yeah, and we'd, you know, if any of us came up with anything, we'd book a little studio and go in and record it. We did a lot of recording one way and another. We made all those non-stop pop things, like the Christmas album, the Non-Such.
Mike Moulton Congregation.
Yeah, that thing. You know, we didn't plan them. We sang on them, but yeah, we'd done a few bits and pieces, quite a lot of bits and pieces together. I'd never met Mick before the Rubettes.
And what about Bill?
No, I hadn't met Bill either.
So who drafted those chaps in then?
John did.
So John essentially put the band together from scratch.
Because John had been playing a lot of sessions. I mean, I moved up here, don't forget. I mean, I was up in Burnley while John was doing all this. And he became sought after session drummer. You know, he was on Kung Fu Fighting. It was one of the biggest records of the time. Sold millions of copies.
And you really rate John as a drummer, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, he was always... I mean, the thing I always say about John, me and Roger Sutton, I mean, Roger's one of the best bass players I ever worked with, one of the sweetest blokes. He was best man at my wedding. Played with the Brian Auger Trinity and Nucleus, I think. I mean, very, very serious. He had one of the first fretless bass I ever saw was his. Because he'd taken, I think he played a jazz or a fret or a precision, one or the other, and he'd bought a piece of ebony and taken the fingerboard off and put his own fretless ebony fingerboard on it. So he was terrific, and we were playing together, and I got offered a gig at the Cromwellian in London, which was when I left Wee Willie Harris. His manager wanted me to put a band in the Cromwellian, so I got Rog, and we needed a drummer. So I phoned up somebody that I knew, and I said, "Do you know any good young drummers?" And he said, "Yeah, I've got this great kid I'm teaching." It was John. So John came down, and we played a couple of things, and then me and Rod said to him, "Do you know that every time you play a fill, you come in early?" Well, the look on his face, you know, you might as well have told him we'd just been invaded by fucking Klingons. The look on his face, he was shocked. "I don't do it." He said, "Yeah." Never did it again. Never did it again. That's what I always call a proper muso, you know. Someone points out a flaw, he goes home and works on it. And we had a rehearsal the next week, and he never did it again. So he was terrific, and I mean, that's why he was sought after session drummer. So he knew Bill, and he knew Pete Arneson, which was even more important, really, because Pete was the best musician in the band at the beginning. Really serious keyboard player Pete was.
Pete Arneson was the keyboard player.
Yeah. So he knew those people, and you know, he knew Mick, and of course he knew Al, because they went way back. And he wanted a good guitar player, and you know, God love him, he sent me a telegram. That dates me, doesn't it?
Do you ever talk to any of the Rubettes still?
No, I saw Bill years ago. And John came up when Shell died, which was delightful, because I mean, I hadn't seen him for 30 odd years. And Bill recorded one of my songs. His Rubettes did Where the Angels Fear to Tread. I think it's the only time anybody ever recorded one of my songs. They made a bloody good job of it and all. But no, I mean, I haven't. Well, I mean, I'm up here for a start, which is one of the reasons I don't see him.
Do you think you would have more contact with them if you were down south?
Well, I do. I mean, yeah. I mean, it was you know, when you leave a band. I mean, once I left that band, that was the end of it. I mean, I bumped into them a couple of times years ago. They came up to Southport to do a 70s show with Susie Quattro and a couple of other people, and I went over to see that, and I bumped into them there. And then they were playing somewhere locally, and we went and got some charity money off them for Clay. So I sort of bumped into them like that, but yeah, I mean, I've missed John ever since I left the band. But you know, one of the things about music, I think you do kind of get used to the idea of, you work with people for a while. I guess it's the same in anything. Acting, probably the same thing. You work with people for a while, for a long while maybe, and then you, for some reason, whatever happens, you know, you finish making the film or the band breaks up, and you never see him again. You know, I mean, that happened to me with Willie. I mean, I've seen Willie loads of times because we've always been good mates, and he stays up here if he's any working up here. But Pete Relton was one of the bass players with Willie. I mean, I've never seen Pete since the day he left that band. Jeff Lawrence, an Australian drummer, who I got on fabulously with. And then, you know, he left the band and you never see him again. And it's one of those things that's what music's like.
Were you upset when you had to leave the Rubettes? Were there any hard feelings at all?
I think it came as a relief in a way to me, because one way or another it's hard work, and because that band never really knew what it was. You know, if you listen to the album, some of the tracks on the albums are very good, but when you listen to the Eagles, you know they are. You listen to Status Quo, you know they are. You listen to Steely Dan, the Police, whatever, you know they are. Or the Stones, or the Beatles, or whatever. The Rubettes never had that kind of identity, do you know what I mean? So it was, I think we were always trying to find out who the hell we were, and pulling in different directions, and doing a lot of things wrong.
Well, you can give her diamonds, you can give her pearls, you can put her on top of the world, but she still won't be yours.